Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Grandmaster Goach, and I am a professional Warzone commentator. And in this video, I break down all of the World Series of Warzone teams underneath the DanDangler. She did a great job picking up some amazing teams. So comment down below who you think is going to win this tournament. And I've got a YouTube video out on every other captain that is also participating and their 10 squads that they have drafted underneath them. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, this was interesting. You guys watched the draft, right? Some of you did. DanDangler's squad, I mean, she was very analytical with her approach, which I think she had to. DanDangler is she's a content creator. And she's one of the largest female Warzone content creators out there. She gets a lot of views, and that's the reason she's one of the captains, which is great. She picked up two of the best players in the game, Wagnificent and Doug is Raw. I think those are fantastic picks. They've been able to perform in some tournaments. Wagnificent hasn't played near as much as other tournament players, but he's still insanely cracked, plays every single day, plays with Crowder, plays with whoever. I mean, he and Doug are both great players. They've always been good. Because she's not the best player in the game, she's not really plugged into the Warzone scene. She's really not. She kind of just does her own thing. She plays with other content creators sometimes and stuff, but she didn't know like 90% of the people on any of these lists. I'm talking people on Swag's list, anybody. She did her research with her team. Doug is, I'm sure, and Wagnificent helped with that. Other people in her community probably help with that, but she literally typed out all the teams in order of KDs, wins, etc., ranked them in order of how she would want to pick them. So she could just methodically go down the list and say, hey, I want this team, I want this team, I want this team. And I thought that was the right strategy. There was no reason for her not to do that. I think that's the thing she had to do. You could tell she was a little bit nervous when she was doing the draft, but she kind of fit in there and did her own thing. And I was pleasantly surprised with the way she did it. I think she had to. So she decided to pick up some pretty interesting teams. I mean, she was going in order, so it makes sense. And some of her interesting picks, obviously her team's great. I would say one of the best picks she got was probably Cloaksy, Crim6, and Teep. Teep is probably one of the most consistent players I've seen in terms of being able to buy back people. So Teep is a high skilled player, can absolutely fry out, but he always plays this very consistent game. We're gonna have somebody like a Cloaksy go out and solo split even in a private match lobby and full send everything, right? And then Teep can go buy you back. And then their third, Crim6, arguably the most notable or have the most notoriety or whatever you want to say. Crim6 is known by pretty much everybody as one of the best, if not the best, Call of Duty player of all time. You have a lot of other names on the list. Don't crucify me, but like, he is the GOAT. He is. And so, has he played a lot of Warzone? No, not comparatively. And so the question throughout this whole draft, throughout the entirety of the tournaments, all the way through, has always been, can a CDL pro, even one of the best gun skilled, mechanically skilled players of all time, can they compete with the Warzone players that have been grinding this game nonstop over and over and over again? My answer to this question, okay, and again, this is my opinion, so you can take it however you like. I think CDL pros will have gun skill to where that if they find themselves in a 1v1 fight or even a 2v1 or a 3v1 fight, and the terrain and the way they take that fight is reminiscent back to like a CDL type map, you're going to find them able to compete. The problem is that is random, and that will only happen sometimes. Most of the times in Warzone, your fights do not look like multiplayer fights. Hardly ever do they look like multiplayer fights. The only time you will see them probably have the highest level of success is maybe in the gulag. I would say a good comparison of this is, if for those soccer fans out there, there are futsal players and then there are football players, right? And although definitely you could have the best soccer player go over to futsal, futsal is still a different game, and the people that main futsal are probably the best players in futsal. I might be wrong on that. I'm not a huge soccer guy, but that's the best thing I can think of off the top of my head. Mix or Medi can stab me if I'm wrong. Okay, so anyways, all that to say, I'll be interested to see how some of those CDL players play. It'll be cool. I think Crim6 is in a good spot. He's playing with two Warzone GOATs. Cloaksy doesn't play in a lot of tournaments, but is one of the best Warzone players out there if he focuses. There's nobody would really like debate me about that. Cloak is this like hey, I've always been good, I am one of the best, I just accidentally dropped 34 kills, he might be a turtle, but he's still an amazing player, right? As long as he wakes up on time. Exactly. Okay, other notable teams on this list, I would arguably say, besides maybe Aiden's like personal team and Tommy's team, this is probably the best team in the entire World Series of Warzone. Destroy, Clutch Belk, and Z-Laner. I mean, come on, right? That's insane. Z and D, as they say, Z and D are a duo. They've been playing together for a while now in the tournament scene. They call themselves Z and D. Z-Laner and Destroy. They've got a ton of chemistry now because they've competed in a lot of events. They're both extremely talented players, really good in bot races, really good in 2v2s, and pretty solid in private matches as well. Their third is Clutch Belk, and some of you guys might know who Clutch Belk is, and some of you might not. Clutch Belk has been a really interesting person to watch in the competitive scene for a while. He kind of grinded his way through the Infam Gauntlet with Royalized back in the day. He's an amazing player. He's probably, personally, I think he's in the top 10 best players in Warzone, period, right now. He just hasn't had quite this consistency of maybe a Z and D or an Aiden or a Tommy or an Almond or anything like that. But he has the ability and the IQ in this game to compete with legitimately anybody. I mean, he is unbelievable player. He's a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of a polarizing kind of personality, which is why some people don't necessarily like him. But in terms of gun skill, IQ, knowing how to play the game, he can definitely compete. There's no question about it. The people that can handle him and work together with him, which there's not necessarily a ton of people that can do that, Destroy and Z-Laner are definitely people that can rein him in and work together with him, regardless of his temper or anything like that. Does that make sense? So that's why I think this trio could be perfect. Clutch Belk and Destroy play together quite a bit, actually, and Z-Laner kind of brings in this like competitive and like intense energy, but also a really calming energy. If you've ever watched Z-Laner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this team, one of the best. I would say right here, this is more of an underrated team, kind of underrated. This is one of those like underrated but shouldn't be underrated teams. Intex, Z-Smith, and Metaphor. Not everybody knows Z-Smith. Z-Smith is a friend of mine. I casted over him in a lot of other tournaments. He's got a really, really high KD. He's like a 6 KD player. He did a tournament with us where he legitimately never died in basically the entirety of the tournament, which was insane. Intex has won some tournaments back in the day. Is a fantastic player as well. And Metaphor is kind of an underrated tournament player as well. I think all three of these guys can definitely perform in a private match scene. Z-Smith is incredibly talented and is on the verge of blowing up for sure. Intex is the same way. Metaphor is kind of been doing the YouTube game for a little while, and I think he could do really well in this tournament with these two other guys as well. I think this might be the highest KD team in the tourney, or really close to the highest KD in the tournament, or KD team in the tournament. However, KD does not necessarily reflect how you will do in a private match tournament. I want to say that and make sure that's entirely fair. I don't know. I don't think the rest of these teams will surprise anyone. They're all talented. I mean, Legion, Queen Shadows, and Stukawaki is going to be great. Stukawaki's a fantastic young player, really talented, bot race king. Queen Shadow is one of the best female players in the game, period. She has like over a 4 KD, and then Legion's kind of a troll, but he is a talented player when he really focuses up. This could be a decent team. Finessing, Mr. Daft, and Sebas is not bad at all. Finessing's a great player. Mr. Daft has been playing with Legion quite a bit, but he's a competitive player. And Sebas, for being a TikToker, if you will, he's still a competitive player. He's pretty solid. Not bad at all. The Optic team down here with Holly, solid team. Jared FPS, Rallied, and Exact could make a run. They could certainly sneak a run through World Series of Warzone and surprise some people. Jared plays a lot of wagers, plays a lot of tournaments. He's a good player. He's not some insane, like, crazy talented player necessarily in the 2 KDs, which is on the lower side for most players, but again, that's not necessarily reflective of how you play in a private match. I think gun skill wise, he's not quite as talented as some of these other players, but Rallied and Exact are both great. Exact being somebody that grinds Warzone specifically a ton, and Rallied being an old CDL pro who's been playing a lot more Warzone now. This could be a team that could sneak through the ranks a decent bit. Nufo, Prodigy, and Sparrows, not bad. You never know what could happen. You know, definitely have some star potential should everything click in a game or two, but I don't think they're going to make it to the very end or anything like that. I know Arlaw. I don't know Pofu and Ollie. They could be decent. I don't know them super well, and that's the only team I haven't talked about, so we'll keep moving.